All right, well, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll get started. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that the land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Roll call. We have one apology from Councillor Fraser. There's two who haven't shown up yet, but I haven't received an apology from them, so we'll they might come in the next few minutes. Do we have any motions to grant leave of absence? And no leaves of absence. All right. Well, we'll see if the other two show up. So number 3, public open forum. Do we have any public open forum? No. Number 4, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Confirmation of the minutes of the meeting on the 10th of May. Mover and a seconder. Mayor's moving and Deputy Mayor's seconding. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Business arising from minutes. If there's nothing, we'll go to 7.1 community grants. This has had some minor alterations from the version on the agenda, just some best practice, I guess, around caretaker period and just wording, since it's going to the September. I said it was going to the September meeting. Basically changing to presented at a future council meeting for endorsement following the 2022 council elections. So I don't think that's, a legal requirement or anything, but I think it's just a, would be a good practice, but we can move it. Do we have a mover for that? We need to put people in the panel. Yeah, so who would like to be on the panel? The Mayor, Councillor Kosh. So the panel will be this panel, but when it comes to a meeting for confirmation, that meeting will be at November or later. All right, do we have anyone? Councillor Goldstone? And I'm happy to go on as well. All right, do we have a mover for this? Councillor Little, do you wish to speak? The seconder, the Mayor, do you wish to speak? No, any discussion? Councillor Sample.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm just a little bit in two minds here. I mean, this is a committee for next term. How can we elect members of this committee that may not be on that?
Well, I think,
it's not until next year.
Any business that we do in the next few months is things to be decided in next council's budget, for example. Like, that's just something that is just what's going to, we've already passed the budget, so anything passed here is decisions that we're making for the next council. But, I don't know, we would have to delay the community grants by months, which probably wouldn't be fair to the community groups. But CEO?
Sorry, the intention is that this council and the members that have just shown their interest would participate, that we would seek submissions. That group that we've just sought to point would then go through that process. We'll then have recommendations, and then we would hold off on presenting those recommendations until after the election.
My understanding is that it's not above the threshold for not above the threshold for what we can do. It's just just something that was suggested. So we, you can move it either way, I guess, but, if you're happy with this, Councillor Goldstone.
So is it because we wouldn't have time to do it between now and September, October?
CEO.
Yeah, it's the fact that the decision to eventually apply the funding will happen after and during caretaker. So that's where it's been suggested that a better practice would be, yes, form the panel, go through the process, but the final decision left to the new council.
Ma'am.
So council can still make decisions during caretaker. Everything doesn't stop because caretaker's there. It's just major decisions that we can't make. So my view is that we would proceed with this and get it sorted before the council elections, so that you're not splitting it.
Yeah. You're the seconder for the motion, so there's a current motion happening. So I don't know if Councillor Little would prefer one or the other. But if you want to change, do you want to change the motion? You just like to put this one? All right. Well, this is the motion as presented. If you don't like it, you can vote against it, and we can have the vote again for another motion. So is there any other discussion? If not, I'll put this motion. All those in favour? All those against? It's lost. Would someone like to move? The original motion, the mayor has moved the original version of the motion. If we could just get that back up on the screen. All right, Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
Just as I said before, I think that even though we're going to caretaker on the 5th of September, we can still make decisions, not major decisions. This is not a major decision. I think this is appropriate that we finish this process and not split it between two council terms. I just think there is a risk that the new council might want to start again, and then it delays community grants. So I think on the basis that we don't want it delayed so that community groups can receive funding, I think this is a reasonable way forward.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kosh, do you wish to speak? Any other discussion? Councillor Shanks.
I guess we find ourselves in a bit of a unique time with these community grants coming through. I see the merit of it following its organic course and seeing the new council have a buy-in on the community groups if it deems it necessary, in all honesty. Yeah, look, firstly, apologies for being late. I'm still trying to get around bathing the little ones and getting into a council meeting all at the same time. But yeah, I get the sentiment of wanting to finish everything off and have it in this current term to avoid any delays. But then that said, I also see the merit of the fresh chamber if we see one, also having buy-in on this very important process. So, yeah, look, I'm split either way, but yeah, that's why I supported the last one.
All right, any other discussion? CEO?
If I could ask Chair to just respond, because Chair did speak to Jordan Dodd about the matter, so maybe just for the point of clarity.
Through the chair, thank you. So just this change came about as some conversations that we've had since the printing of the agenda and rechecking the caretaker policy. So the approving of community grants is not considered a designated decision, but under the council policy, it is considered a major decision, which as far as reasonably practical should not be made during the caretaker period. So it is possible to do, but it is one of the few things that is listed as a major policy decision. And that is the approving of community grants, which is why the recommendation has changed to push it to after the elections.
Sure. And is there because my understanding is that there's a sort of a dollar limit. Is there something, is this separate from the dollar?
The dollar value is $100,000 and the
Okay.
community grants are 15,000.
Yeah. All right, well, that's the advice from governance, but again, this is the motion that's up, so you can vote based on the motion, I guess. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor? All those against? It's carried. Okay, 7.2. Lease agreement, Gawler Community Garden Committee. The Mayor's happy to move. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think this continues support for a community garden in Gawler. I think that we're now at the lease agreement stage. I think this is a really good way forward, and I really look forward to seeing the Community Garden Committee develop the garden and bring some outcomes to the Gawler community.
Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak?
Agree with the Mayor and the fact that the community consultation, as per point 1, was made June last year. So yeah, it continues this process and it continues it on. So yeah, I think it's fine to support.
Councillor Koch.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got a couple of questions about the actual lease. I'm looking on this is the attachment, page 21 of 94, around dangerous equipment and installation. Okay. Now this is a community garden, but it says in the lease that they're not allowed to take any electrical, gas-powered or other machinery or equipment that may pose a danger, risk or hazard. So that means they won't be able to use a cordless drill. They probably won't be able to use maybe a heat gun to control weeds, or even hot water, which also you can use for controlling weeds, and any other machinery that might cause a risk. It then goes on 6.8.2, any chemicals, so any pesticide, I suppose, or other dangerous substance that may pose a danger, risk or hazard. Now, any pesticide is classed as a hazardous substance. So, for example, you might want to use sulfur to control fungus or something. So therefore they can't use that. And the other one, it talks about 6.8.3, any heavy equipment or items that may damage the leased land. So with community gardens, one of the first things I've done when I've set up community gardens is I've ripped the soil. So I've got in big bulldozers, not bulldozers, but machinery with rippers, and I've ripped the soil while I've been ameliorating the soil. So those 3 items there probably put a stop to most activities at a community garden.
Do we have staff who can clarify lease issues, CEO?
Well, I would say that it's fair and reasonable that we would have those clauses. but that would require the tenant to have appropriate checks and balances and procedures to make sure that the risks aren't material. So that would be the work that we would do and undertake with the community group. So that would be my response to that. And sorry, through the chair, we have somebody in the gallery who's showing their hand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Tracy from the Community Garden. We're quite prepared, happy to do risk management on those things. The clause does say, can't quite remember the wording, but to do with risk management rather than a flat knot. Obviously, walking on the site carries risks. There's a few of us that have certainly filled out risk management papers before, and if that would make things happier, because everything we do there carries a risk, if that would help.
Right, thanks. Does that clarify your questions?
I understand people do risks assessments for everything we do, but it actually says here, will not install or bring onto the lease. So it's actually quite precise about those three elements. So I don't know whether the lease can be just, some words can be added in there, because it actually says you cannot take, if you take this literally, they cannot take a battery powered drill onto that site. Or use any pesticide, because they're all hazardous substance.
CEO?
If I could suggest that we could adjust part 2, which reads council adopts the proposed lease agreement. We could include as amended to address risk management matters, that could address that point regarding ensuring the balance relative to the wording and then the sort of risk management practices that we'll be expecting.
But the thing is, this lease is probably written for other purposes other than a community garden. It's just when I read that, it means that a community garden would not be able to function. So it's probably just a templated lease, I'd imagine, and it's not actually written for a community garden. Yep.
Yeah, well, we've added as amended in there. If that's all good with the mover and seconder. Yep. Okay. Do we have any other discussion? Councillor Sample?
Mr. Chairman, I totally agree with Councillor Koch. I mean, obviously, whoever wrote this has never worked in a garden before, because, I'm sorry to say, but I would like to see that 6.8 was totally eliminated out of the actual area there, because everything else, as far as I'm concerned, is perfect. And for the people that are going to operate this garden, they're not going to do anything stupid. I mean, I think you've got to have a bit of common sense come into it. But as Councillor Koch said, how are you going to be able to keep that garden in good shape? And he also mentioned the fact that it has here, will not bring or install any of those whippersnippers or whatever that we all use in our garden every day. So I'd like to see that 6.8 was eliminated.
Councillor Shanks?
I think you're between both. I get where both sides are coming from, but it's sounding like you just need to clarify your risk assessment, where you request SWIMs for safety work method statements for anything that has deemed high risk, i.e. battery operated, gas operated, petrol operated. You want to see safety work method statements for that to not only protect our interest on our land, but ensure that the operators are consistent with, a commercial venture that has to operate in this. And the chemical side of it, you probably want to just make sure that you're requesting SDSs be available, so safety data sheets that outline any chemicals that enter that site. I don't think I get why it exists. I understand that. It's just the wording isn't quite to the standard that it should be to mitigate those risks. Listening to the gallery, I think there's some people out there that are pretty adverse in this system, but I think we need to be very clear and consistent on what we're requesting. And those are the kind of management techniques that you use typically to manage these sorts of risks. So if you like, I'd probably just mention those sorts of management techniques that would probably alleviate Councillor Koch's concerns and Councillor Samble's concerns.
All right, is there any other discussion? If not, I'll move the motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Seven point three goal of fringe. This one, there are two options. So we need someone to move one of those options. Well, yeah, we can have a discussion on it. Did you have a question, Councillor Koch?
Yeah, I suppose the first one is there's a $3,000 saving if you go down to Apex Park, and that's to do with the traffic management. Could I get a breakdown of the cost? What's actually involved in that $3,000? Because that seems like a fair amount of money for, you know, for one evening.
Do we have a chair?
I'd have to take that one on notice. Unfortunately, Linda's not here this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what do we do? Because I've actually got a whole lot of other questions around this, and I think Linda would be the only one that could answer it.
Could I ask if Councillor Koch just present a couple of other questions and hopefully we may be able to answer them. If not, then we'll consider where we go.
I suppose the next one is the person doing the licensee, are they contributing any money to the fencing and the security?
And no.
At Apex Park, the issue of toilets was raised when I think the Apex Club had their Christmas session down there. Will there be an extra requirement for toilets down there?
Through the chair, I believe the new toilets are adequate. It would depend on the size of the event. And if we wanted to cap it, that would require fencing. So.
Let's also talk about having a bigger stage. What's the extra cost of the stage, and also the extra cost of the I think the term is a special performer.
Sorry, through the chair, the cost of the extra stage would be $1,200, and the cost of the performer, it would depend on who we were able to get within the approved budget.
Okay, I suppose I'm just concerned that in here it talks about only costing an extra $1,000, where there's all these other issues that need to be sorted out. You know, it might be well above the $1,000, I would suspect.
Do we have any other, Councillor Shanks?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move that it stays at Walker Place, which I believe is
The first option.
The first option. I'd like to speak to that if I could, Chair.
Yep.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of things that I find a little bit ironic that we're talking about maybe needing to move the event because we don't have things like toilets close to this event. I'll leave it at that with the toilet point, but yeah, one of the main points I think some of us raised about the removal of the Walker Place toilets that probably would have saved there. And to the point about liquor licence providers that are there to sell to the community, they're ratepayers. So they're rates that contribute to the fencing that goes on for these sorts of events. They are contributing, and business ratepayers are some of the heaviest slugged, as we know. The whole liquor licensing thing that we put a bar in and everything like that is just to cater to some of our community members that like to go there for a Friday knockoff. I'm one of those that I've been the last couple of years. We've spent $2 million on this development, and then I don't see the optics around moving it yet, seeing as, in my opinion, it has had a good turnout. I know that my opinion doesn't quite align with some of the chamber on this particular event, but yeah, being there and hearing the comments has been quite positive. I'm not ready to change that up just yet, in my honest opinion. Look, I would love to be able to save some money on some rental of loos, but that horse bolted. The saving of $1,000 is nominal to me. I think there's overs and unders across a project, and they might change come March, depending on the costs that come through. But look, if we're going to do this event, I think the Walker Place is well situated, and why we activated the space, in my opinion. So yeah, that's why I'm moving option 1. I see the merit of holding bigger events at Apex Park, and I see the potential of yeah, maybe doing something with some other community groups around that. But yeah, the way that the Fringe is sitting, I like it as is.
Do we have a seconder? Are you wishing to second it? Yes. Go ahead.
I'm happy to second it. I quite like it in Walker Place. I've got concerns about certain things, but we might be able to work through that later on. People really love that Friday night. They like the venue, they like the atmosphere, the ambience around there. So I think it's good. I'm concerned that going to Apex Park will blow out, especially when you start talking about bigger stages and different performers and headline performers, etc., etc. They tend to blow out. So also, we used to have it on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and Saturday afternoon, nobody turned up. So it was just an absolute waste of time on a Saturday afternoon. So when I read in here, they wanted it from 2 o'clock or something till 10. That's that time of the day. From experience, nobody ever turned up. If it's too hot or they're off doing something else. So the Friday night evening has proven to be the best time slot for the opening. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yeah, I support option 1. The Friday night does work at Walker Place. It's small, it's boutique. People love going down there. As Councillor Shanks said, Friday night knockoff. It is a very popular venue for the Fringe, and I haven't heard an argument against moving it to Apex Park. And we got rid of the Saturday event because no one turned up. You're absolutely right, Councillor Posh. No one turned up from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's just, 1, it's too long. 2, if it's really hot, and it generally is hot in February, it's just not a good outcome. And I think that a Friday night in summer is the best option for a Fringe evening event. And we did spend a lot of money on Walker Place, and I think it does deliver for this particular event. So I think option 1 is a really good option, and there's no argument for change at this stage.
Councillor Liddell?
Yeah, I'll be speaking against it. I think it's very elitist. It sticks to certain people. Other people in the town have approached me and saying, we're stuck in Walker Place, certain venues there get all the franchise money. And there's no other opportunity to people from one end of the street to the other street to go and join in. They thought, when I mentioned Apex Park, they said it's a great idea in relation to toilets and things. More people can go, playgrounds, things like that. It's more of a family event. But my main beef about Walker Place, it's too elitist. It sticks to certain people in that area and nobody else in the town can join in. That's why I won't be voting for option 1.
Councillor Sample?
Yes, I'll be certainly speaking against it because, as you know, I don't believe that alcohol in any way should be at an event like that when it's a family children event. There's shops right next door, there's one across the road, there's one down behind, and we should be supporting our businesses all the way down the line. We're talking another $56,000 for an event that's going to happen in a new council year. So there's no way I feel that we should be moving and getting things. A new council will be in December. If they can't organise or approve something like this in 2 months, there's something wrong. So I would not support this for sure.
Are there any other speakers? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I don't think it's elitist because you actually have all the community, and before Walker Place was made into a multi sort of use area, no one used to go there. It was quite a dead space. So it's actually been built up, and as Councillor Shank said, we've spent $2 million there. I think we need to hold events like this, and I think it's really good for the community because people might listen to a couple of bands there, but they'll go to a restaurant or they'll go somewhere else in the town that night as well. So it sort of really does sort of encourage other events. It also is part of the other fringe events in the town. So I think it's a really good event. And yeah, unfortunately, for council to hold events, it is expensive and it does cost a lot of money, but they are done really well, and we do get a lot of locals singing and dancing and playing musical instruments, which I think it's all about. So it's a really good community event. So yeah, I'm supporting it.
Any other discussion? If not, do you want to wrap up the debate?
I just had a question through you, Chair, first. In the report, there's talk about schools working with the Apex group. What conversations have happened in that space, just out of interest?
Through the chair, no, we haven't approached any schools to date. This was just a proposal and something that we would action depending on the outcome tonight.
So I'll speak now if I can, Chair. Yeah, look, I can only comment on my experiences and the conversations that I've had through my networks. I'm definitely hearing tonight. It sounds like I need to get out there and have a couple more conversations. But I'm still not in a position to say I want to change the status quo, because it is an event that I guess I don't consider myself elitist by any chance, but I definitely enjoy the night and fellow tradies that I've been with and different business owners and stuff that I've met there over the course of the last couple of years. I've definitely appreciated it. I do hear the sentiment of seeing how more businesses can benefit. I would like to unpack that a bit more. But this particular model, I think, is working with the upgrade in that area. Now I'm keen to see how we can bring a bit more community along for the ride, listening to tonight's debate. So thanks, colleagues, for that.
All right. So I'll move the motion. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried. 7.4. Gawler Aquatic Centre update and season review. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'm happy to move the motion. Can I speak?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I really appreciate the really thorough report. Would have taken a fair bit of work, but I think it's really good to have this seasonal wrap up of the pool and look at the future. And basically, we know we subsidise the pool, and to see how many dollars per head we subsidise it. But it's also good to see that things like the lessons and the canteen and things like that are sort of assisting with the income side of things. I think the swimming lessons still could be refined and improved to try and help. And I've seen a big improvement in the last probably 6-8 years in the swimming lessons, which has been really good. But I think that is really important to sort of get usage of families into the swimming pool as well. And also it does highlight how much investment council does put into the pool on a yearly basis too. I think we do have to be very strategic about future spends and be careful not to overspend if we're sort of looking in next 5 years or so building a new pool, to be very careful on how we sort of spend, because we have spent a few $1 million just keeping a very old pool going, so it is expensive in that regard. So that whole strategic side of it, is very important as well. But yeah, I'm happy to move the motion, and yeah, thank you very much for the very detailed report. I think it's very good.
You have a seconder, Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with the Deputy Mayor's comment. It's a really, really good report. The pool is used by many Gawler people and also people across the district, because it is a 50-metre heated pool. It does cost money to maintain a facility such as this, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I think that the visitation numbers are really healthy. I think there's always a bit of room for swimming lessons, etc. But I think they've actually improved over the last few years from previous. Using Maxima to access staff, I think, has been a great success according to the report. So I congratulate staff for bringing Maxima on board. There are a number of community groups that use this pool. You've got the education department that have come back using the pool, which is fantastic. We've got really good change room facilities now, which also address child protection, which is fabulous. I think that's been a big plus for the aquatic centre. Yeah, so I think it's really good to read a report like this and just see the update. Congratulations. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councillor Koch?
I've got some questions. The first one is in the summary. It talks about the heat pump or hybrid gas solution. We're going to get a report at the July council meeting. Is there any update on that? Because that's cost us a few dollars. Is there any update on that to start with?
I don't think we're joined over by Angus over there.
Through the chair, that report's coming in a couple of weeks' time. No, not yet.
Next one is talking about the kiosk, and that's been a bit of an issue over a couple of years because it was one stage where it was. Is there an idea? Because we talked about upgrading. You talked about upgrading facilities there and everything else. What's the cost on? What's the return on the cost of that? Because obviously it costs a lot to have a staff member there selling chips, cold drinks, confectionery, coffee, and ice creams. What's the return on investment for council?
Sorry.
As an aside, all of those could be sold via a vending machine, for example.
Through the chair, so the kiosk isn't specifically staffed by permanent staff member. So that facility is staffed by a rotation of staff that are already on site moving through the kiosk. We are required to have a minimum of 2 staff on site trained with lifeguard at all times. So they'll take turns on the deck doing jobs, rotating through the kiosk and doing point of sale.
The question is, what's the return on investment? Because we are spending a lot of money on staff rotating through, selling items that could be sold via a vending machine.
Well, I think he's saying that we have to have that many
staff.
staff.
Got an extra person just to sell stuff you can sell through a vending machine. Why are we selling hot food?
Well,
okay, that's not my concern. Well, okay, for that one, we had a report, I don't know, earlier this year, I think, where we looked at enhancing, the fries and everything about the chips, because that was going to enhance the visitor experience. I'm just concerned that we're actually running a pool, not a kiosk. That's my concern.
Is that just a comment that Angus can respond?
Through the chair, we did try and put some detail in the report related specifically to the kiosk, in that it's a multi-use space. So it's the entrance to the facility. So we have staff in there that are serving as well as, taking payments and learn to swim registrations and things like that. So we don't specifically have just kiosk only staff. Often we do use the kiosk as a rotation space because of the heat. So it allows the lifeguard that's on deck to come into the kiosk for 15 minutes and cool off and then go back out on deck. So it's a multi-use space where they're not just dedicated selling hot food or confectionery items. So they're sort of doing both sort of jobs.
All right, Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, look, I see the Gawler Pool as a really good asset to the town. The investment lately is, I think, step one on some upgrades that we will see in this space as part of our master planning, which is fantastic. Yeah, look, on a personal level, if I'm taking my 4.5 to a swimming pool and I can't give them hot chips to cool down their, warm up their blue lips after they've been cold hanging out, I'm going to get some daggers. I get the point that you have staff rotating through, and it's good to see that efficiency used, because yes, there's probably not a need for the full-time staff member in the kiosk, but you've picked up that efficiency by having them on serving entrance and also trained with the life-saving needs. So look, I see all the benefits of that, and it also going to different aquatic centres in other LGAs in other states. It is a common theme. So we are aligning with expectations there, I believe. A couple of little fun facts that I picked out of the report, which I thank you for, Angus. Just with the swim gear. So this year we sold 715 total, but only got 8,370. But last year we sold less, but made more. So the swim gear must have gone down in price, which is fantastic. But look, I think these reports are good to be able to see how one of our assets is performing, and I think it is very transparent, and it does allow that scrutiny that we are debating tonight. But yeah, look, I'd like to see this asset only grow in the town, because I agree with the mayor. I think we're well situated on the regional stage in relation to the 50-metre heated pool, and having Adelaide Plains Light Council, Barossa Council at our doorstep wanting to come in and use that only promotes the entrance of people into our town, which we all want, right? So yeah, look, I'm happy to see this report, and yeah, I like the layout of it, so I thank you for that, Angus.
Councillor Koch.
Yeah, I'll be voting for it, but I have concerns around a number of things, and I'll be eagerly awaiting the report next council meeting, because I think a fair bit of money has been spent on the concept of the heat pump, the hybrid, etc., and I don't know whether a heat pump is going to be able to heat up that large volume of water. So it's disappointing that we haven't had any information tonight, because I imagine that report's already been written, but I'm looking forward to getting that information in a fortnight. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Does the mover want to close the debate? No. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So 7.5 community scorecard feedback. I believe we had a presentation from Mr. Barrett.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a very quick overview of where the scorecard is for members' refresher. So on the Town of Gawler website's homepage, down the very bottom is the link to the scorecard. Clicking on that link takes you through to the Scorecard Overview page. and it has a snapshot of the scorecard embedded within it. But for better viewing, if we just click on the arrows to open in full screen, you'll see the scorecard here. So the homepage of the scorecard is the community profile demographics for Gawler. We've been able to update some of those metrics to the recently released ABS data from the 2021 census. We're waiting on the employment and work status data, which is coming in October. However, the population, marriage components, dwellings, all those sorts of things have been updated to the most recent data available through the 2021 census. Each of the community plan themes is then covered and our goals in the 5 goals, and each of those categories has data underneath it, and all you have to do is click on a goal and it takes you to the relevant data underneath. So this is goal 1, our identity, and the metrics that council staff are putting in and responding to record how we're achieving our identity statistics. And we can filter by financial years and quarters. I won't go into that. You can play with this at home. And it gives you a really good snapshot of data across many years. We've got around about 5 years of data in most areas, only a couple in others. The financial data is only available to the end of the 3rd quarter of 21-22. We'll have to wait for the final audit to come for end of financial year data for that. But as they're navigating through to each of the goals at the top, goal 2 on our managed and sustainable growth. Again, a lot of data in here about our assets and growth and investment of infrastructure, footpaths, etc. Goal 3, having our sport and recreational facilities in terms of engaged community, as well as library services, programs, youth and older persons, disability access and those sorts of things, and immunisations as well. In goal 4, we have our respect and nurture of the environment. So this is how we're acting on climate change, animal management, waste collection and diversion to landfill, and those sorts of statistics that we get from Norma. And goal 5 is our leadership, which is essentially where our financial and customer service stats sit in the scorecard. So it's a very active scorecard that you can drill into a lot. You can also drill further down if you're not, if you want to see the stats in large format, you just click on little links and it takes you up. So if council members had any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but it's all available on the website for you to peruse at your leisure.
And how do people get to it on the website?
It is on the homepage at the bottom, or you can search community scorecard.
All right. Mayor?
Yeah, I had a little play of it last night, and I've got a laptop computer at home, and you can't actually make it a full screen on a laptop computer. You can't see the little icon where you get a full screen, so you can't actually see it. The information is really good, but it looks like a screenshot on a laptop computer. So it's sort of easy to dismiss. You think it's a screenshot. You don't think it's actually the actual community scorecard. So my suggestion would be that it is user-friendly for laptop computers. I've got a Microsoft, whatever the latest Microsoft laptop computer is, at home. I tried it on an iPad and I couldn't really navigate it properly. So I think if you're using a laptop computer, which most people have at home, I think greater functionality would be useful so that you can navigate it far more easily. I love the fact that you can get all that information. The information is really useful. And it, for example, if you look at the goal 4 with waste management, we're now up to 51% of diversion from landfill. And only 12 months ago, we were down to about 44%, I think, 46%. So it's showing that the aim is to get to 70%, and we're well on track to get to 70% in the next couple of years. So that's a really interesting statistic. And that's the value of something like this, which is really useful for not only elected members, but staff and also the wider community. But from a functionality point of view, I'd suggest that, I don't know how you actually make that happen, but certainly there would be greater functionality for laptop computers so that you can actually make it a full screen. I couldn't actually get, and that was a bit frustrating because it's harder to navigate, and touch screens, you know, you don't always use, I don't use a mouse, I use touch screen exclusively. So yeah, just some feedback, that's my feedback. Yeah, but I do really like the information that's presented in the scorecard, and I'm happy to move the motion.
All right, so was that your moving of the motion? Okay, seconder, Councillor Koch.
Look, yeah, look, I had a bit of a play around with it. I really enjoyed it. It was easy to navigate. A lot of very, very good information. The visuals are really nice and colourful, easy to read. Yeah, I was also quite surprised that our diversion rate's 52%, which is fantastic. Yeah, overall, I think it's great. Fantastic.
Councillor Shanks.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, when I opened up my attachments, I was expecting to see a little bit more there with the scorecard, but then I realised why it wasn't there, because I jumped on the laptop. I'm running on a Mac, so I might have just had a different ability, but I was able to find the expansion and then play through there. I do get the point, though, that it's not as clear to get there, and I think this is one of those things that we want community members looking at quite regularly, and the ease of that needs to only promote that. And this is me nitpicking because it's nearly July and this has only been live for a limited time realistically, but it'd be great to see that around July we start seeing the comparatives of the last financial year consistently across, because some of the statistics or the numbering is a little bit hard to compare when you're coming into financial year. Like at the moment, I'm looking at total expenditure on community, social and recreational facilities. And we're looking at 2021, which is 1.2 million. It'd be great to compare in real time of what that was in 21, 22. Now, again, I know it's only just the end of that financial year, but that feedback is what we're here to give, I believe. Also, I like the idea of being able to click on those graphs to blow them up. But the next step for me would be in 2021, we had a jump in $1.2 million expenditure on these sorts of things like social and recreational facilities, which is fantastic. But I think we know that that equates 900 and something thousand for the pool. It'd be really, really good that the next step would be the click of a quick summary on that expenditure for the user. I know that because I'm an elected member, but having that ability and that next step, it is fantastic to have these things at your fingertips. You know, just the population growth alone is really handy to know. And also cements what I'm out there telling my ratepayers that contact me on these sorts of things. But if I'm to point them in the direction, I know I'm going to have a raft of questions that are going to come back. So it'd be really good to figure out a way to communicate some of that data and really have the option for them to drill in even further. Not to a complex level, but just as simple as local expenditure on 20 kilometres supporting the local economy is up 22%. What does that mean? That's it. Yeah, I had really a good time playing with this, and yeah, it became very apparent when I went, oh God, I need the laptop now. I figured out why. So yeah, looking forward to seeing yeah, this financial year's results, last financial year's results fed into it.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll move the motion. I think councillor Koch seconded it. So if there's no other discussion, I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 7.6, Gawler Civic Centre lower ground floor meeting room usage review update. Mayor? Happy to move the motion?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've read this report extensively. This is a reasonable report. The only thing I would say is that in regard to the tertiary hub, and I think they give some good options to develop a video podcast room downstairs. In regard to the tertiary hub, it sort of reads as if it's not a good idea. I think it is a good idea, and what isn't mentioned, whether I missed it in the report, is that access to tertiary education is not great in the north. It's appalling, actually. We lost Salisbury College a number of years ago. We've got Mawson Lakes with very limited access to tertiary education, and most students who access tertiary education have to go to either Flinders in the middle of the city or UniSA. A tertiary hub allows students here in Gawler to access wherever they want to study right across Australia and maybe internationally. And the ABS data is not, it's not great for Gawler. It's not. Go and have a look at the ABS data. We're not providing access, and it's not just local government, but we do have a role in advocating for appropriate access so students can get on in the world. And tertiary education, it's not for everyone, but there are many, many students that are disadvantaged, that are unable to get into that space, whether they want to or not, and it's not fair. To say that we are metro, this has been an argument for Gawler for time immemorial. We're either metro when it's more expensive, or we're country when it's more expensive. And it's always been the same. We won the argument through advocacy, through Nick Champion, who was member for Spence at the time, to get back into the BBRF program. There's no reason why we can't have the same argument with other funding streams. So I think this report says that we're basically metropolitan. I'll challenge that. We're 42 k's from the CBD of Adelaide. That's quite a distance. And it's borne out in the ABS data for tertiary education. And even finishing year 12 is not great in this area. So we need to do better, and we need to advocate really strongly to be able to get access to these funding streams. If we're not regional, what are we doing in RDA? I'll put that question. And I think we need to be in RDA. I think we are regional. We are a regional centre. Many people come from the north to access services here in Gawler. And I just think we need to try harder and ensure that we are in the mix. And we do deserve to have a tertiary hub in this town. There's a tertiary hub in the Barossa. A lot of kids who don't have access to cars can't get access to that tertiary hub. So bad luck, you know. And I think that one of the core responsibilities of any government, be it local, state or federal, is to improve social outcomes. And this is one of those issues that we really need to go in and fight for. So I am currently we're drafting a letter to Matt Burnell. I rang Matt Burnell and he was going to contact Jason Clare. Jason Clare who's now a federal minister, was the first person in his family to get a tertiary education. So we do have an opportunity to improve the outcomes for our young people, or even people who want to go back and get better educated. So I think that it is important that we continue that advocacy. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I agree with the Mayor. We've lost our TAFE and we do have high-speed internet at our admin centre in here. I think it's really, really important that we try and get this tertiary hub. And in my own family, 3 daughters at home, one's just finished uni, the other 2 are just trying to do tutes and even listening to lectures at home. Often they'll be running around turning off everyone's devices so they can get enough internet speed to actually listen and hear. And yeah, because it is really quite frustrating for them. One studying at Flinders, which can be 2 hours or more to get to, and each way, so it's 4 hours of travel. And with the train being down for so long, it was terrible. But yeah, our community desperately needs some tertiary assistance in this sort of manner, and I think it's very important that we promote it. And even Roseworthy College, Adelaide University, that is an institution that sort of goes up and down. And when you do talk to senior people from Adelaide University, they don't seem that keen often to actually invest in that side as well. And it is quite frustrating because it could be a lot more, and it has been in the past, a really, really busy campus, but it really depends on the university actually running the courses there as well. So I think yeah, here in the hub, fantastic opportunity to use the high-speed internet and actually get students using that service from here, because yeah, there's the whole fibre to the node and that the speed issues that students have working from home isn't that great. And if they then have to travel or do tutes or anything where they actually have to talk back to lecturers or tutors, it does become quite desperate and frustrating for them when they actually don't have enough internet speed to actually be able to do that correctly. So I think it's really something that we should be pushing very hard for. So support the motion.
Yeah, and with my experience at university, I think it is something that there is a barrier there. It is far away enough to be a barrier, even with the trains back, putting aside Flinders, which is still pretty far away, even with public transport working. Even just an hour and a bit there, an hour and a bit back is something that stops people from being able to just when the group chat says, oh, let's meet down in the room at the uni to study, they'll go, I don't have 2.5 hours of travel to have that 1 hour of study, and so whether it's studying, socializing, there's a sort of, I don't know, if you quiz people who are actually from the city and ask them if Gawler was metro, they would, well, look, they think Salisbury's the far north, as far as I can tell. So, like they go, wow, you're from all the way out there. I think it's something that we are technically part of the metro area in some respects, but I think it is something that students who are from Gawler and are staying in Gawler are missing out on things that people who are staying within 15 minutes of the city have access to. So yeah, I think that it would be great for us to have some local study rooms and other things for local people. So is there anyone else? Councillor Shanks?
Yeah, just quickly, the social outcome that we have the potential of getting for those rooms, it aligns with the Civic Centre. It's taken us a minute to tease all this out, but I think we're in the right direction. We definitely have a stumbling block at the moment, but I'm optimistic to see if we can just overcome that, to see this really, to see those students really benefit from the space. The question through you, Chair, is around point 3. So I'm just probably looking for a bit of an update with the Gawler Business Development Group for the podcasting video room. Now, I think last time we talked about this was the potential with the workshop of the Civic Centre, and we'll just workshopping some of those ideas. I was contacted by members of the Gawler Business Development Group after saying, look, you know, we're trying to do one. We tried to do one with council. It didn't quite work out. So we're seeking external. Where's all that at? I like the point that the progress, the opportunity with the Gawler Business Development Group, because I would hate to see us be a competitor of such a group. So I was just looking for a bit of an update.
So through the chair, the Gawler Business Development Group lodged a funding application to the Building Better Regions Fund in December, I think it was January period, and are still waiting for outcomes of that funding application. Federal government funding for that stream normally are notified in August-ish. The last round was notified in October, so anywhere between that time, we should hear an outcome of that funding application. And within that application is the option to use one of the rooms at the Civic Centre as a video and podcasting room. So we're just waiting on the outcomes of that funding application, because the group itself doesn't have the financial capacity to fund a room for itself. So it's seeking that external funding support.
Councillor Sample.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to know, like, the actual operation itself. I think it's great the way it's all put together, and it's good listening to the conversations that are going on. Here I go, the Ike old bastard I am, and that sort of stuff, but I see such a lot of costs here, and is there going to be a fee for the persons using this, or do we supply that and add another staff member, as I see on 45, somebody answer some question, is there going to be any type of income coming back in from using those facilities?
So through the chair, this report isn't committing council to fund any of the activities. It's just the proposals and options. So we're not actually going to be investing in that infrastructure at this point, or the staffing. It was just the costs anticipated if we were to. In terms of usage of the rooms and fees associated, that's governed by our fees and charges register, and community groups have free access to those rooms at this point in time, and individuals. It's only corporate entities that currently pay for those rooms.
Is there any other discussion? If not, sorry, did we have a seconder? Okay, do we have Deputy Mayor as the seconder? Yes, and already spoke. Yeah. All right, if there's no other discussion, I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 7.7, Christmas in Gawler. And I did have some questions previously about the Mayor's Giving Tree and Christmas card competition. Was there any update with, I guess, governance about the situation with the election and such?
Through the chair, governance will continue to look at everything business as usual until we hear differently in regards to the titling, and that's the latest update from them.
All right. Do we have a mover for this motion? Mayor, wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, awaiting governance advice on naming, etc., and we'll be guided by that. But in any case, Christmas in Gawler, people are really starting to enjoy Christmas in Gawler. The Sanders Workshop has been an outstanding success. Gawler Carols will be back. We've got a market. We have matinee performances. We give to people less fortunate than ourselves, which I think is really important. And we're working with community groups. So it's not just the Apex Club of Gawler and the Gawler Business Development Group, which are both very good organisations. but it's also the Willows Men's Shed that come to the Santa's workshop, and they're really excited about coming along again this year. So you have a real community focus, which I think is really important. So people love it. I think we're really nailing Christmas. Christmas can be quite commercialised and quite an expensive and stressful time for many people. However, if you infuse community into this, then I think you have a much better outcome for people, particularly the Carols event, which is effectively a free event where people can come along and anyone can join in, which is really, really lovely. So I'm looking forward to that this year. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Little, do you wish to speak? Is there any other discussion? If not, I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. (7.8) Policy review. I think these are all fairly just changing some dates and such. Councillor Goldstone, happy to move it. Do you wish to speak? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak? Is there any other discussion? In that case, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. So Councillor Goldstone and Deputy Mayor seconding. That brings us to items listed for discussion, if there's anything. If not, questions without notice. Do we have any questions without notice? Councillor Sample?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure whether other councillors are getting comments or phone calls like this, but untidy premises in the town. We know there's a lot out there, and nothing has happened in 12 months. I'm just wondering if there's anything that's going to happen, and especially the latest comment from the new owner of the cinema to do with the complex of the old LCI kindergarten. There's a lot of houses in the town. I just wonder whether the CEO has got any comments about what is going to be done about untidy premises, because nothing's happened in 12 months.
Well, I'm happy to get an update from staff in terms of the properties that are on our list and conversations that we have had with owners. And that particular property that you referenced, we have had a conversation with the owner, but I'm happy to get an update and can forward that to members accordingly.
Are there any other questions without notice? If not, are there any motions without notice? If not, we'll close the meeting at 8:12.